Welcome to the Flower Essence Podcast, and join us on an exploration of the healing wisdom of flowers.
With combined decades of experience in the study and practice of flower essence therapy, I, Kathleen Aspenns, and co-host Rochana Felde guide you to reconnect to nature with these potent vibrational remedies. Hi, everyone. It's good to be back. Ro and I are today going to be talking about our favorite books. We really both enjoy reading about flower essences and have developed our own libraries about different books that we really enjoy. We thought we'd sit together and talk about them a little bit. There's lots of ways to learn about flower essences, and certainly we would never be without actually the personal experience of meeting the plants. But you can learn a lot from books, and you can learn a lot about how to practice flower essence therapy and a lot about the history of flower essences from the books that are out there. So we thought we'd dive on in.
Yeah, sounds great. I know that we can talk about our favorite books for hours, so that's why it'll be pretty easy, I think, to do a whole episode on this and still run out of time.
No doubt there's going to be plenty to talk about. And we don't want to do an exhaustive, because at some point we're going to talk about how we learned about flower essences and talk about our training and sort of our experiences with flower essences. But I think today we're just going to tackle the book side of that topic and dive on in. I think I would like to start with one of my favorite books, and one of my favorite authors about flower essences is Julian Barnard. And he is the creator of the Healing Herbs brand of flower essences, which are really dutiful to Dr. Bach's work. And he has a direct lineage to the teaching of Dr. Bach. And I think that that's pretty important. And he has certainly proven himself to be a faithful steward of Dr. Bach's legacy and has amazing insights on the original Bach essences. My favorite book that I first started with was Bach Flower Remedies, Form and Function. And he has a number of books out there, but the Form and Function book is really amazing in the depths of the research that he's done on each and every essence and the aspects about where the plants grow and what they look like and the history on, what he's come up with about Dr. Bach's creation of them. I think this is a book that's on your list too, isn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, I do like that book. The one that I used more in the beginning before I got that book was The Healing Herbs of Edward Bach. And the thing that I like about it is the color pictures. So that really helped me get to know the Bach flowers a little bit better. When I first learned about Bach flowers, it was like, as many people, walking the health food stores, and it was in the 1990s, and they used to have those little fold-out pamphlets where it had this, sometimes a questionnaire, of which to find out which flower remedy you needed, and I still have one from those old days. It's somewhere.
Oh yeah. But I think we all have those tucked away somewhere.
That was like magic finding that, it was just this little secret hidden kind of health food store thing. And it really got me excited about flower essences way, way back in the day. But because, some of those flowers are local, that you could find here in the States, but others aren't so common. And so when I finally found a Bach flower essence book that had pictures and talked, a bit about more of the plant, I was just really excited to see those pictures. And so that's one of the reasons that this book helped me understand the Bach flowers a little bit better.
Yeah, completely agree that Julian Barnard has done a lot of work towards how would I put it, taking the Bach flowers out of just the little brown bottle section and actually teaching people how they're made and how they could make their own and connecting them to the plants and not just buy the product, let's say.
And we should mention the website because he has all of that training online. He has a lot of the form and function information on his Bach Flower Education website. I can't remember the URL, but we'll put it in the show notes. And there's recordings from different people that were involved in it. So it's just an excellent, excellent resource.
How cool. I know I saw some stuff with Nikki Murray, who is his teacher. And I think there's a DVD even on searching for Serato or seeking Serato, something like that I think that he has some input from Nikki Murray in that content. But it was really cool because that heritage of Dr. Bach taught Nora Weeks, and then Nora Weeks taught Nikki Murray, and then Nikki Murray taught Julian Barnard. So there's that direct transmission of this heritage, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad we both came at it from the same angle. We didn't have this conversation before we turned on the recording, so it's kind of interesting to hear what your origination story was with the Bach essences also. Very cool.
I mean, I literally remember the health food store in Novato, California, and going there on my lunch hour. And I think when I found that, I just sat on the floor and read, and I was, just enthralled by it.
Yeah, that was a really exciting, just the doors start to open for you. You're like, oh, there's all this, there's this whole thing, this whole type of healing that, none of my friends knew about it, and nobody I knew anything about it. And it was just sort of this discovery, and you just get, sucked right in of all the coolness, all these different essences. Like, what is that one about? And I remember thinking for years, like, oh, I'll never be able to learn all of these. And now it's like, that's just the start.
Right.
So little by little, don't worry, you'll learn them all yourself. And was the FES, was that your next step on things that you were learning? So you had the FES repertory.
Yeah, and I still have my old one. It's the bindings coming off. It's not even the spiral one. It's like before that. And yeah, that's been the Bible pretty much for most people. So that carried me through for a long time until I really, branched out from those teachings. How about you?
Yeah, for sure. I really love what FES brings. The Flower Essence Society. We're acronymizing. Is that a word? We're creating acronyms as we go, or not creating them. That's an existing one, but we didn't let you know what it was. So the Flower Essence Society is a company that's based in Nevada City, California. And they have done, as an organization, they've done incredible research over decades of all of these plants that are native mostly to the sort of the western part of the northern hemisphere, let's say. A lot in California, obviously, but they kind of are all around. And the essences are beautifully researched, and the quality that they bring to the work. It's not a fly-by-night situation at all. And so their information is always really solid. And I trained initially with the Alaskan Essences company, but also attended the Flower Essence Society's practitioner course and was very impressed by the quality of education that they offer. So the repertory is also a really great place to start learning about the different essences, to learn about different uses of the essences. And I think the repertory that's in the market right now doesn't have as much information as you'll find if you become a member. And I think they have a lot available online as well about like the actual nuts and bolts of working with essences.
Yeah, the beginning chapters of the repertory book are just packed with great information. I really appreciate the history and the view that they bring to it. But the repertory, the cross-referencing of the soul issues, and then the monographs for each of the essences is really invaluable, and it's one that I've always, when I worked at an herb shop, I pointed him to this book. I don't know, multiple times a day. So it's a great one to have for people wanting to look at the soul issues and not really needing to know anything much else about flower essences. Once they start looking through that book and seeing their issue and the different explanations of why you would the different pieces for using one essence for, for example, nervousness versus another, it really makes a lot of sense to people without having any training. So
Completely agree.
But then once you do have the training, it's still just as valuable. I mean, I do use it all the time.
Well, the work that they did to create that differentiation in those listings of what the issue is, that each essence, it's not just each essence is described in relationship to that particular type of the issue. So it's very specific where you can kind of go down and go, okay, of this type of nervousness that I might have, I've got it in this type. This is when it happens, or this is the circumstances under which I feel nervous. And so you can be much more precise in your application of essences by using something like a repertory. In this case, particularly, it's a great repertory. I'm a big fan of that one as well. It's gotten a lot of use for sure.
Yeah, and I love all the books that have cross references and do that kind of thing. So that really, there's a few others on both of our lists that do that, and I'll mention it. But it's really, really helpful to have that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd love to talk next because we're sort of in like the classics in the standards, the Bach and the FES essences. But I really love this book on Bach flower essences for animals, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well. But the authors are Helen Graham and Gregory Vlamis. Hopefully I've said that correctly. But this was a really solid book on helping animals with flower essences, and I think I've had this book for a very long time, and it was one of the original ones that I thought actually really handled the topic very, very well, and actually was coming from a place of knowing quite a bit about animals and being able to transfer those qualities of what the essences are all about into what the animals are going to display as the signs that you might be able to notice that you could then apply the right essence. So I'm a big fan of these authors. I think they also have another one on dogs, but this one particularly is sort of a broader all animals book. So yeah, and working with animals with essences is so great, but boy, if you're looking at the general FES repertory and you're like, I'm not sure where to start because we're talking about soul issues, it's like, I'm not sure how to translate that into applications with animals. This is a good place to go.
Yeah, I don't have that, and I'll have to look into that one you mentioned for dogs. So that's good. I have a different one for working with pets, and it's the Flower Essence Remedies by Jessica Bear. Mm-hmm. It sort of, I did the same thing when I first started using flower essences with my dog. It was hard to do that translation, that human animal translation, and this really helped me do that. And also, not only that, gave me insights for, ways of using those essences with people, just kind of those sort of basic emotional and instinctive things that all sort of animals have. It translates better going up the chain, I guess you could say, than down the chain.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I could not agree more. It's so right, isn't it? I mean, when you start looking at kind of the basic pro-social group mammal, you're dealing with a lot of the same issues. We're not that unique, people. Animals do, all kinds of animals have these same issues. And like you say, when you can look at an animal and determine, what are they going through? You actually recognize even more clearly how that will show up in a human. We can put a lot of language and verbiage on the top of it, but actually what's inside is happening. It's the same thing.
Pretty basic in some cases.
Almost all the time, honestly. We're not that complicated. We think we are, but yeah. So yeah, that's really cool. I have discovered the same thing, so it's fun to hear that you did too. What's your next pick?
Yeah. Well, of course, we're going through the classics in Alaskan. This is an out of print book, The Essence of Healing by Steve Johnson. But all of this information is on their online repertory, which is, a one-time fee for an incredible amount of lifetime information. But what's great again about this is the repertory in the back that lists the soul issues and the different aspects of the different soul issues. And I think that's really helpful, as well as the pictures, because a lot of those flowers are not common to where we are. And I actually have their cards as well, so you can get a really beautiful way of looking through the flowers from a visual standpoint with their deck of cards.
Oh my gosh, yes. And you'll find that under what they call the living book. And that was really, I think, one of Steve's major big projects that he completed before he passed a few years ago. And he's much missed. But boy, the living book was just a brilliant idea. I'd never really heard of it before. And like you say, it's really a very modest fee, and you have lifetime access. And it's especially those images. He was such a gifted photographer, and his images of the flowers and the gems, they just absolutely sing to you. They're so vibrant and great. And to be able to access that on your screen, to be able to really dial into the energy of the plant or the gem, it's amazing. And I forgot about the cards. I wasn't even thinking about the cards. Yeah, I've got them too. They're great.
And I don't really use these cards that much for divination or picking essences, but to just really look through and see the visual of the flower calling out to me.
Well, I think that both of us, we tend to do all of our client work remotely. So they make a lot of sense when somebody is having somebody in the office and they can pull a card, they can see what they're really attracted to. So they're probably more actively used by somebody who's doing work that way. But also, just so you know, that for the listeners, the FES has full cards on all of their essences, as do the Healing Herbs has a beautiful set of cards. So those cards, a lot of the companies have done that because there are, and we can talk about this more in the episode that we talk about, ways of working with essences and choosing essences, because that's a really valid way of working with essences, is to select cards, whether letting it be sort of a divination process or whether an attraction repulsion process of looking at the images and like, oh, I hate the look of that. Well, that might be something that you need to work with. But I too I've used the cards, those Alaskan cards, as an overlay for a tarot spread. And it was really interesting, where you could kind of bring different modalities together in that way. I don't know if you've ever played with them as an overlay.
I have, with different spreads and different cards. Yeah.
So cool. It's so much fun to we haven't had that conversation about divination. And it's like, we're both on the same track so often. It's so funny.
Well, oftentimes what I'll do is lay out the cards for the essences that I think are appropriate for a client, and then I'll use a pendulum over them to narrow it down. That helps me narrow my choices down. Or I'll just have them in my hand and be playing with them while I'm on the phone with a client, and stuff just kind of resonates and pops out. And in that case, I'll bring out multiple different decks, and then I have my own sort of index cards of all my essences. That's sort of that I use like a deck. So there's all sorts of ways to work with these, rather than just opening up a page in a book. And sometimes that tactile and visual element brings a lot to the table to help with recognizing the flowers that are calling out.
Yeah, totally. And I think that makes a nice little segue into Cynthia Athena Kemp Shearer's book on the art and technique of using flower essences, because this is such a good book for teaching you a way of working with essences. It's not the way. There's so many ways, but I really like her perspective and approach. And her approach was developed really organically because she first started making essences without even knowing what essences were. She's one of the pioneers in sort of the modern era of flower essences, and just literally the plants told her what to do, and she started making essences, and she didn't have any interaction with people making essences for a long time. So she's developed some ways that are very uniquely hers, and I really like particularly her focus on creating an intention as to helping you select essences. And that's something that I started out doing when I started practicing, and I've done it all the way through. I absolutely, pretty much almost always work with a client to create some sort of an intention statement, whether it's, sort of ornate or very, very simple, like a word. And I find it really helps to clarify the focus of a formula and help it resonate with the person who's taking it over the course of the period of taking the essence. They keep checking in with, what's my intention? That's my intention. And it helps to connect the essences into what we're asking for them to do. Is that a book that you've read? Are you familiar with her?
Yeah, well, I only just bought it recently, so I have skimmed it and I haven't gone too in depth. But yeah, you and I took that class last fall with her, and that's where I bought it. So I'm, excited to learn more about her line and her teachings and have some of her essences now. So I definitely resonate with her approach. Everything that she said, I've very much agreed with. And yeah, she's got a big book, big repertory type book that also looks amazing. I don't know if you have that one.
Yeah.
They just reprinted it from what I read on her newsletter. So that's definitely on the wish list.
Yeah, she's got quite a few publications available. I refer to the, I didn't pull up the name. Well, I'll put it in the notes. Kind of her main book on her desert alchemy essences. And I have that. I have a very sad old copy with all the pages falling out. But I also have it in Kindle version. And I keep that on my desktop a lot of the time to refer to because it's got a really good search feature, which is really nice. And then, pictures and stuff. But she has also some really good, she has an individual repertory that's separate. It's a separate book that's a really worthwhile repertory. Lots of in-depth information on each essence as it applies to a particular issue. So I really appreciate that rather than just a regurgitation of the stock label, just like the 2 lines of what the essence is about. She really delves into what each one is like in this context. So I appreciate the depth of work that she puts into her essences and her books, her writing.
I like that you brought up getting the Kindle version so that you can do searches, because I definitely did that with, and I have an older version of the book of the new Encyclopedia of Flower Remedies by Claire Harvey, and there's a much bigger, more in-depth version that I bought as a Kindle, just precisely for that reason, just so that I could do searches. And this book it's got a really good intro, at least the later version, that also, a lot like the FES repertory, really goes in depth about the philosophy of flower essence use and using it with clients. But then the rest of the book, the bulk of it, is almost like a combination of all the repertories from all the big makers. So it has all the Alaskans listed and all the FES listed, and then it has other companies like Hawaiian Gaia flower essences, and it breaks it all down by the different part of the world that they're from. So there's essence producers in here that, I had never heard of before I got this book. And it's very interesting to see the different explanations, maybe for even the same flower, but by the different makers. And, it's in the back, it has one of those comprehensive indexes that breaks things down by soul issues. So doing that Kindle search, you can get a kind of a really good feel for what a flower essence is about. And I use this more when I'm researching after I've made a flower essence. So after I've made a flower essence, and I don't research before I do the attunement with the plant, but afterwards, when I go to see and kind of check, hey, what I received is that the same as what other people did, right? It's like the first thing I do. Am I crazy, or is there something to this, right? And so this is a great one for getting that kind of quick hit of what other producers have said about their flower essences. And I'll find sometimes you can do that with a Google search, but I'll find things in here that I just don't find by doing that on an internet browser.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, I think that's a really interesting concept. The idea that different people working in different parts of the world, all around the world, are making the same species or the same plant, and it's like you get the same message mostly, but it's kind of coming from a different angle, right? There's a real difference of individuality of the maker starts to come into it, and perhaps the ecosystem starts to come into it a little bit more. So it's very interesting, and hopefully it should be that the rough message is more or less the same. And if it's not, then you look at it like, I'm not sure that person's dialed into the frequency I'm on, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another book that I'd love to talk about just a little bit has been really influential for me. It's Bach Flower Essences and Chinese Medicine by Pablo Noriega, and translated into English by Louis Kolbeck, who's a great practitioner. And the overseas influence of Spain is so... The level of training and education there is so great. It's so impressive how professional the practitioners are and the level of education available. And this particular book I just love for talking about creating a bridge, essentially, between Bach flower therapy and Chinese medicine, and talking about the different elements that flower essences and Chinese medicine indications come together and bridge that topic. So coming at it from the angle of my education in learning about Chinese medicine and acupressure for horses, and being able to see those patterns, those emotional patterns, and seeing, oh, okay, yes, that's where it fits into, say, a spleen pattern, that this particular essence, which I might not have thought of otherwise, but it really fits in if I overlay with that. And I've just loved, when I'm working with people now, adding those insights into the essence blends with them and finding really cool results from using what the indications are from this book.
Yeah, I actually have that book as well, but I really haven't used it that much since I haven't delved into the Chinese medicine aspect, and I've been studying Ayurveda, so I've just been kind of off in a different direction. But I know that it's a really highly respected book.
Yeah, it's a lot of information to onboard, for sure. It's not like you can just pick up Chinese medicine in a weekend. No, it's really complex. But once you start getting your brain trained in that direction, it starts to make a lot more sense. So I think it's really worthwhile, and it's a very interesting perspective. But it's certainly not the first place I would send anybody to learn about essences. But if you have any background with Chinese medicine, you might get really excited about seeing, or even you don't even have to have a background in Chinese medicine to read the book. It holds itself together, but it is a lot to grok for sure.
Yeah, and since you brought up the Chinese medicine aspect, I mean, I guess I want to give a shout out to our friend Deborah Craden, who wrote Floral Acupuncture. And that is a really unique take on using the Bach flower essences topically on the different meridian points. So that's and it's got some great color pictures that are well illustrated with where those points are. So that's a lovely reference. And she does teach that topical application as well, working with the Bach flower body maps by Dietmar Kramer. And this is another really unique topical application book that lays out the whole body in a system of maps and correlates that with the applicable Bach flower remedy. And so I did take that class of hers and experimented a little bit. I don't, do topicals with my, in person with clients, since I just do the virtual consults. But I have experimented it with myself, and it had some powerful effects.
That's it, and it's just one of those things that, especially when you're getting started with essences, is to learn from as many different sources as you can, and then you'll develop your own style and your own techniques along the way. You don't have to necessarily try to reconcile everybody's opinion or all these different styles into the way. It's really kind of interesting to see how different people are getting fabulous and beautiful results in all these different fashions. So yeah, I've read those books as well, and every once in a while I'm working with somebody, I'm like, I think I should look that up. Tell me where this weird thing is happening for you, and then I'll pull out the body maps and take a look, and another little piece of data that you can kind of add in. I hope everyone is really enjoying. It is fully in spring here, and so my birds are going nuts in the background. You're hearing from the canary and the gray parrot, and boy, yeah, it's spring. Everybody's having a big time here.
The sun is shining.
Yes. So those were the flower essence per se books that I know and love. Are there another one or two that you've been?
I've got so many more.
Well, I didn't bring up like my entire library, but I just wanted the big ones, the ones that I were like, oh, I love these books.
Yeah, let me talk about Flower Readings. This book by Susie Chiarazi. I don't know if that's how you say her last name. This made a big impact on me. It talks about flower psychometry and how picking flowers, or out of either like a picture or the card or outside, can give you so much insight into what you're going through. And in the process of explaining that, she really lays out the sort of different meanings of the patterns of the petals, the colors, the way their growth habits, their plant family. So all of these lovely correlations that I love to look at in thinking about flowers and flower essences. It really resonated with me because I think of them that way already. That's a really lovely book as well.
Cool. I mean, there are so many, and there's a lot of overlap in the world of plant medicine and spirit healing and all these things. And that would bring up the one that not a flower essence book, but this guy, he's the awesomest. The Secret Teachings of Plants by Stephen Buhner. And he is just so cool. I am just gobsmacked by his insights, and he's just a really smart thinker and a very intuitive person, and brings he brings research together with inner research, and boy, it's just such a cool book. And it talks, I guess I have to sort of explain it a little bit. He has a huge segment on the intelligence of the heart, and that's really the essence of this book, is about heart perception as being a form of intelligence, as a form of intuition, even. And he brings in a lot of research that's been done on the heart itself as the organ, and then also as an organ of perception. And then he brings in this whole poetic angle and this whole philosophical angle that just it's to summit. And he's such a beautiful writer. He's very intentional with his words, and I just admire his writing style so much.
Yeah, I agree. I have a lot of his books because he's an herbalist first, right? So he has a lot of books on herbs, and also the secret teachings of plants and plant intelligence and the imaginal realm. And he's a wonderful writer, definitely a good one. The Plant Spirit Healing by Pam Montgomery is another one along the same realm of plant communication. But I also wanted to bring up the Guru Das book. So this is a channeled book, and it can be a little esoteric for some, but Flower Essences and Vibrational Healing by Guru Das. It's a classic in the field, and what I like about it most are the charts in the back. So there are flower essences that correlate with psychological states and diseases and physical parts of the body, and then there's these comprehensive charts in the back. And I think that it's really nice for just like a quick, hey, what's another okay, I've looked it up in the FES repertory, I've looked it up in different places. What's the information coming from Guru Das from the channels, and that can help validate and clarify things for me sometimes, and I like that.
Cool. Sounds interesting. Yeah, cool. Well, I think we haven't exactly emptied our bookshelves.
No, that's like not even.
But we've brought out some of our top 10, let's say.
Yeah,
these are the ones that we just probably evacuated with. I don't know. I have a number of books that I took in my car with me when I needed to evacuate the last several times.
I just took all my journals. That was my important thing.
Yeah. But yeah.
But I did want to say one more.
Yeah, please.
Just to shout out to David Dalton.
Oh, yeah.
The Stars of the Meadow book, because he was one of my teachers, and I know one of yours
Mine
as
too.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I appreciate the most of it about it is that he works with some herbs that are the more standard medicinal herbs, and of course, that resonates with me. And he also has a great repertory in the back. But what I think makes him stand out is he's really got a practical mindset. So it's a really practical guide for using flower essences, and sometimes more in the realm of working with physical conditions. So that's an aspect you don't get from a lot of the other books.
Yeah. And once again, it's different perspectives on different things. And so you when you're wanting to learn about essences, you start checking in with different people, and everyone has really quite different ways of working and quite different perspectives. So it just depends on what you're attracted to and who's attracted to you. I mean, you're going to have a different client base, right? Everybody has a different client base, and they're going to be drawn to different ways of working and different styles. So it's a beautiful rainbow colored world, isn't it?
What a fun episode this was.
Yes, we've had a good time, haven't we, playing with our books, showing off our books.
Just nice to just not talk about the pandemic for a while.
Oh, boy, yeah, it's been a crazy couple months, and I don't know about you, but I've had a little more time that I've been able to spend with my books and spending a little time learning things between, freaking out and taking my flower essences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad we did this today. This is a fun little topic, a light little topic. Yay. And until next time, we're really grateful for all of our audience members for listening to us. We really enjoy sharing this time with you. It's really lovely to have this time with you. And we would just adore having any reviews you might offer us. If you scroll down to the bottom of the screen on the Apple Podcasts, you can give us some stars. Maybe that'd be really cool. Helps other people find us, and that's really the thing is that we want to have people know more about flower essences, and we want to share this information with more people because, my gosh, if the world didn't need flower essences before, it really needs them now. So thank you so much for being with us, and until next time, see you, Ro.
See you next time. You've been listening to the Flower Essence Podcast with Rochana Felde and Kathleen Aspenns, and we appreciate your interest in connecting with nature on a deeper level. You can find us online at thefloweressencepodcast.com or join us on Facebook and continue the discussion.
This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are not physicians and do not diagnose, prescribe, or treat medical conditions. Please consult with your own physician or healthcare practitioner regarding the suggestions and recommendations made by the hosts and guests of the Flower Essence Podcast.